Hello everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We are holding a Mishnah Berurah Chelik Aleph, and we'll be learning Emir Hashem today, Daf Hey Amud Aleph. Today's share is being given L'Zech Nishmas Avi Moiri, Rabbi Tzvi ben Rameir, Alav Shalom, as well as L'Ilui Nishmas Miriam Liba Bas Devora Aleha Hashalom. The Neshamas should have an Aliyah. So, we're in the middle of learning the halachas of Hanagas Adam Baboker, how a person is supposed to comport himself when he arises in the morning. We have spoken about how a person is supposed to get up with zrizus, la'avodas habayre. Person is supposed to awaken in the morning with a feeling that he's getting up to go be Ovid the Rabbeinu Shalom, to go serve the Rabbeinu Shalom. And like we saw so beautifully put in the Chavetz Chaim began Chelik Aleph. Siman Aleph, Ois Katan Aleph, the Chavetz Chaim said, Ki lekach nivra ha'adam. We have to realize that's what we were created for. That's what we get up in the morning for. That's our tachlis. That's our whole purpose in life. And we have to get up with zrizos, with alacrity, to go be mekayim, to go fulfill our tafkid in life. Now, yesterday on Daf Daled Amud Beis, in Siman Aleph Sif Beis, we learned, the Mechaber said, Hamashkim l'hischanei lifnei boiroi, somebody who gets up in the middle of the night to go be mispal to the Rabbeinu Shalom. We said there are 3 times during the night that are considered opportune times for tefillah. That was at the end of the first third of the night, at the end of the second third of the night, and finally at the end of the last third at the night, at the point where night is switching to day. Now we begin on Hey Amud Aleph, top line in the Shulchan Aruch, Siman Aleph Sif Gimel, says the Mechaber, Roy l'chol yirei shamayim. It is worthy of everyone who has fear of heaven, every yirei shamayim, sheyehei meitzar v'doyeg al churban Bais HaMikdash. He should be upset. He should be aggravated. That's a meitzer. He should be upset. V'doyeg. And he should be consumed with worry. Al churban Bais HaMikdash, due to the destruction of the Bais HaMikdash that should be rebuilt b'mehera v'yameinu. What does it mean to be meitzer v'doyeg? Well, meitzer, he should be upset. He should feel the loss, the lack of the Bais HaMikdash. And he should be doyeg. He should be worrying. When is it going to be rebuilt? Not that a person should go through life, everything is fine, everything is life as usual. Olam kimin hagai nohig. The world goes on, kimin hagai, as it always does. Everything is fine. No, a person should be worrying. It's another day. It's another day. Where's the Bais HaMikdash? When is the Bais HaMikdash going to be rebuilt? A person gets a year older. It's nochayor. Another year without the Bais HaMikdash. You come to another Pesach. Oy vey. It's another Nisan without the Bais HaMikdash. What's going on? Sometimes I feel it's like I want to say, where's the urgency? You know, we've seen asifas. You have great asifas. Let's say they take a stadium to talk about the dangers of technology, or they take a stadium to make a siyam hashas, which is a wonderful thing. But sometimes I wonder, why don't we take a stadium and fill up a stadium for where's the Bais HaMikdash? We have a crisis. We have a huge crisis on our hands. Where is the Bais HaMikdash? We keep on being mispal for the Geula Shlema. Where's the Geula Shlema? It hasn't happened. It's not happening. What's going on? So where's the urgency? And people should be consumed with urgency over where's the Bais HaMikdash. That's what it means. Sheyehei meitzer v'doyeg al churban Bais HaMikdash. We should be upset and we should be worried. We have a crisis on our hands. Where is the Bais HaMikdash? Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Tes, Roy l'chol adam. V'hamekubalim, the mekubalim he'erichu ma'oid. They have spoken at length, begoidel ma'alas kimas chatzos, about the great value, the great mila of getting up in middle of the night at midnight by chatzos to daven Tikun Chatzos. Ki rabahi, it is a great, great, great mila to get up at midnight and daven Tikun Chatzos. Ukvar nitfas pasidurim seder hahanoga al pi kisvei ha'ari zechronim levracha, and we have printed in the sidurim, we have a nusach and a seder for Tikun Chatzos that is based on the teachings of the Ari. Uzman Chatzos, when exactly is this time of Chatzos that you should get up? Says the Mishnah Berurah, Hu tamid be'emtzas halayla mamish, it is at the exact midpoint of the night, bechol makom, in every place. Now that sounds like a very simple sentence. When is Chatzos? When is midnight? Oh, it's tamid be'emtzas halayla. It's always at the middle of the night, bechol makom, in every location. Well, what else would you think? So, not so simple. First of all, to say that the Zman of Chatzos is always at the midpoint of the night, that stands in contrast to the Shita of the Magen Avram. The Magen Avram holds that Chatzos Halayla is not necessarily at the midpoint of the night. It is six 60-minute intervals after the beginning of the night, and it doesn't matter what season it is. Now let's realize during the summer, the nights are short. So 6 60-minute hours into the night is actually going to be past midnight. It's going to be past the midpoint of the night. So I don't want to be myrich over here on the technicalities of the Magen Avram's Shita when it comes to Zmanim, but according to the Magen Avram, Chatzos Halayla is not always at the midpoint of the night. The Mishnah Berurah is ruling over here not like the Magen Avram. He's ruling over here. He brings this down from the Shari Tshuva, the Arz Sakayim, other Achrayim, and you'll see in Shari Tzion's Kat Yun Gimel, he says, Deloy ke Magen Avram. This stands in contrast to the sheet of the Magen Avram. As far as what the Mishnah Berurah says, B'chol Makom, in every place, there's also something interesting about that. And I don't think too many people think of it in this way. When we speak about Tikun Chatzos, and we speak about the Maila of davening over the Churban Bais HaMikdash at midnight. Or for that matter, when we speak about davening Vasikin. So we daven Vasikin, that means we want to start Shemona Esrei by Netzach Hama, right? Well, let's say I miss it by 5 minutes. Okay? If it's not Netzach Hama here, it is Netzach Hama somewhere else. Now, Klape the Rebbeinu Shalom, what's the difference if it's Netzach Hama here or it's Netzach Hama somewhere else? So the Rebbeinu Shalom up at Shemayim is receiving all of these tefillas. And he's receiving all of these tefillas from all around the world. So somewhere in the world it's Chatzos now. So why do I have to say Tikun Chatzos exactly when it's Chatzos by me? When I say Tikun Chatzos, it's Chatzos somewhere. If I daven Vasikin, even if it's not Vasikin now over here in Staten Island, New York, where I am, it is Vasikin somewhere else. So is it so important that I hit Vasikin? Is it so important that I hit Chatzos? Says the Mishnah, yes. Because the Maila of Chatzos for Tikun Chatzos, the Maila of davening Vasikin for Vasikin, that's a Maila that's based on where you are. In order to get that Maila, you have to hit that time where you are. And that's why the Mishnah Berurah makes the point, B'chol Makom, doesn't matter where you are. So there are no words in the Chavetz Chaim, in the Mishnah Berurah, that don't have meaning. It's like a Rashi in Chumash or a Rashi in Gemara. Rashi, I always say, was the master wordsmith of the Torah HaKadoshah. There are no extra words in Rashi. If you read Rashi and you say to yourself, that's a funny way to write that, then chances are you don't have right pshat in Rashi. There's something that you're missing. Chavetz Chaim, no extra words, no funny phrases. Chavetz Chaim wrote what he wrote, he meant what he wrote. And we have to discern sometimes the meaning between the lines. Says the Mishnah Berurah, doesn't matter on the season, if the nights are long or the nights are short. Chatzos is always at the midpoint of the night, which is precisely 12 hours after Chatzos Hayom. And Chatzos Hayom, midday, is the midpoint between, at least according to the way the Mishnah Berurah is going here, between the midpoint between Netzach Hama, sunrise, and Shkias HaChama, sunset. Now, says the Chavetz Chaim, as far as the precise time when it's proper to mourn for the Churban, Nachon Yoser, it would be more proper, Sheyihiyeh Koidem Chatzos Ma'at. It should be a little bit before Chatzos, not precisely at Chatzos. Umechatzos ve'elech yasek b'Torah. And then beginning Chatzos and on for the rest of the night, that's when you should have a seder in limud HaTorah. That's a good time for learning. Ubesoif halayla, and finally at the end of the night, Yavakesh Tzrachav, that is a time that is besugel for davening to the Rebbeinu Shalom for your personal needs. V'yesh Oimrim Oz, and some say that at the second part of the night after Chatzos, Oimrim Oz Shoimrim Laboiker, that is a good time to say the slichas that comprise the grouping of slichas known as Shoimrim Laboiker. If it's already getting close to sunrise, Yomar HaMizmorim Levad, say the kapitlach of Tehillim that are involved in Tikun Chatzos, V'yadalik HaKinois, and do not say the Kinois. V'achar kach Yomrim Shoimrim Laboiker, and then say the piyutim of Shoimrim Laboiker. V'achar HaTikun, and after Tikun Chatzos, you want to know what you should learn after Tikun Chatzos? Shir Mishnayis Kaidam L'chol Davar. Chavetz Chaim tells us the most important thing to learn then, the first, if you have to prioritize, first should come Mishnayis. Now we know that Mishnayis, Mishnah, is comprised of the same letters as Neshama. So the limud of Mishnayis is something that elevates our Neshama. Of course, all limud HaTorah elevates our Neshama, but the Chavetz Chaim is telling us over here that specifically early in the morning, it seems that there's a special inyan to learn Mishnayis. So if you learn Mishnah Yomi, that's a good time to learn and chazer Mishnah Yomi. Many Vasikin Minyanim have a minig to learn Mishnayis right after the Vasikin Minyan. If somebody merits to learn and understand Kabbalah, the second half of the night is a time that's besugel for the learning of Kabbalah. The Achrayim have a Kabbalah that Mishichvi ad Kumi, from the time of the year that is labeled with the word Shichvi, lie, and we'll see what this is based on in a moment, ad Kumi, until the point of the year that is labeled with the word Kumi. Hainu, what are these times? Mishavuos, a Shichvi is a reference to Shavuos, which begins on the 6th day of Sivan. Sha'imrim Shichvi. We lane in Rus, a pasuk, where Boaz is speaking to Rus, and he tells her, Shichvi ad haboker, lie here until the morning. So Shichvi ad haboker, so Shichvi is a reference to Shavuos. Ad Tisha B'Av, until Tisha B'Av, Sha'omrim Kumi. In Eicha, we have a pasuk, Kumi Roitni Balayla. So from Shavuos, which we have the pasuk of Shichvi, until Tisha B'Av, where we have the pasuk Kumi Roitni Balayla, Ein Tzarech Lakum Balayla. During that time period, from Shavuos to Tisha B'Av, there is no need to get up to say Tikun Chatzos. The Yeshomim, however, others say that time window where you don't have to say Tikun Chatzos is slightly different. The Yeshomim, Mechamisha Asar B'Av, from 2 B'Av, Ad Chamisha Asar B'Iyar, until the 15th day of Iyar, Yakum, you do say Tikun Chatzos, but from the 15th of Iyar until the 15th of Av, you do not say Tikun Chatzos. So far we have 2 shittas. One shita says you don't say Tikun Chatzos from Shavuos, which is Vav Sivan, until Tisha B'Av. The other one says from the 15th of Iyar, which is obviously before Shavuos, until the 15th of Av, which is after Tisha B'Av. That's the window when you do not say Tikun Chatzos. V'hanoihagim al pi Kabbalah, those who follow the minig that was established by the Mekubalim, Sovrim, they hold shetzarech lakum tamid, that you have to get up all year to say Tikun Chatzos. Chabura she'neschaber yakad lo b'tikun chatzos b'tzibur. If you have a chabura, a group that has gathered together to say Tikun Chatzos b'tzibur, they want to say Tikun Chatzos with a minyan, ein lamonam, you should not stop them. Now, why would you think to stop them? Well, the reason that you would think to stop them is because this might shmek of gaiva. This might be mechsi ki yuhara, which the Gemara always frowns on. If a million of people come and they say, we want to get up every night and we want to say Tikun Chatzos with a bitzibur or with a minyan, people might say, all right, you're acting a little bit above your pay grade. Kamash Balon from the Mishnah Berurah, no. If there's a tzibur that wants to say Tikun Chatzos b'tzibur, allow them to do so. V'adarabba, quite the opposite, says the Chavetz Chaim. It's a big inyan. Barav am hadras melech. We know, we spoke about this at length when we were learning Hilchas Begillah. There's always a rule that says that the glory of the Melech Malchei Amlochim is B'roiv Am. When we see that there's a Roiv Am, when we see that there's a large grouping that's getting together for Avodas Hashem, that glorifies the Rabbeinu Shalom even more. So there's a group that wants to say Tikun Chatzos b'tzibur, that's B'roiv Am Hadras Melech. Allow it. V'toiv Yoser, and continues the Chavetz Chaim in the same vein, and he says, and it would be very good sheyomru as tikun b'beis hakneses, that they should say the Tikun Chatzos b'tzibur in the shul proper. Misheyomru b'cheder hasamachloi. Don't send them to the simcha room, to a side room to go say Tikun Chatzos b'tzibur. Let them use the Beis HaKnesses itself. The Beis HaKnesses kadosh tvei, because the Beis HaKnesses is a higher level of kedusha. So let them say Tikun Chatzos in the room that's the most kadosh. V'gam, and furthermore, there's another reason to say it in the Beis HaKnesses proper. Sheyiyu me'asara harishonim. If they're going to say Tikun Chatzos, and this is interesting, because the Chavetz Chaim is saying, let them say Tikun Chatzos in shul, so that when it comes time for Shacharis, they should be from the Asara Rishonim. They should be from the first 10 to make the minyan, which is a big inyan. That means that they're saying Tikun Chatzos a little bit before Chatzos, before midnight. Then they're learning Torah, Mishnayos, different Kabbalah, all the way until Shacharis time. These people aren't sleeping all that much. Okay. Continues the Chavetz Chaim. V'tzarech biyichud lihizayer ma'oid ma'oid. Says the Chavetz Chaim. We have to be especially careful misichas chulin, from speaking dvarim b'telim. Sichas chulin, to talk about mundane things. B'nei oirim b'layla, when we're up in middle of the night. Now this is really based on a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. We have a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Perek Gimel, Mishnah Dalet, Mishnah Hey. Rabbi Chanina ben Chachinoi Omer. Rabbi Chanina ben Chachinoi said, Haneyar balayla, somebody who's awake in the middle of the night, V'hamahalech baderech yechidi, or somebody who's traveling on the road alone, Umefana liboy levatala, and he turns his heart, he turns his mind to dvarim b'telim, which means not divrei Torah. Harei zeh mischayev benafshoy. Such a person is mischayev benafshoy. What does that mean? It means it's keilu, he's chayev misa. Why? So the Rishonim say different things. Rishonim say that first of all, Laila is a zman of mazikim. Night could be a dangerous time. So a person requires extra shmira min hashamayim. You want extra shmira min hashamayim. What are you doing battling around if you're up in the middle of the night? Go learn Torah. Be Isaac in mitzvahs. Say Tehillim at least. But be Isaac in a Davar Shebekdusha at a time that you need extra shmira. That's one reason. The Rabbeinu Yaina in Masechtas Avos says that Laila, in middle of the night, the dead of night, that's a time that's extra mesugal for learning Torah. Why is it extra mesugal for learning Torah? It's a very, very good reason. And that is, at night, in the middle of the night, you're free of distractions. During the day, the cell phone is ringing, the emails are coming in, work is on your mind, people are asking you questions. Even a Talmid Chacham is sitting in the Mismedrash. People are coming, they're asking him questions, this, that. Middle of the night, nobody around. It's quiet. So that's the perfect time when you could sit and learn Torah and concentrate. The truth is that I discovered this in a roundabout way, personally. And that is, it runs in my family, a shtickle. I have a challenge of insomnia. Many times where it's hard for me to sleep. So you're up in the middle of the night, and you're tired, and you can't fall asleep, and anybody who suffered through trouble sleeping, it's really a difficult challenge. When you can't sleep well, it really, really, really becomes challenging. So you're up in the middle of the night, and okay, I'm up in the middle of the night. What am I going to do? So I'll go take out a sefer. And I found very quickly that I take out a sefer, and somehow I manage very quickly to get distracted. Go read this, read that, take a look at this, take a look at that. So after a little while, I started asking myself, why are the distractions coming so frequently? Then I realized why. Because of the Yetzer Hara. Night is misugel for limud HaTorah, so comes along the Yetzer Hara, and the Yetzer Hara says, no. I'm not going to let you use this time for limud HaTorah. No, you haven't had a chance to look at the bills for a long time. Why don't you go open up the mail and go sort through all the mail and take care of your bills? Or, there's this thing sitting on your desk that you've wanted to get to already for 2 months. Why don't you do it now? Now's a great time to do it. Yetzer Hara didn't want me to learn. So now I try, when I'm up in the middle of the night, to concentrate even more strongly, take out a sefer. Then the Yetzer Hara comes and he starts making you sleepy, and suddenly you say, oh, it looks like I'm going to be able to fall asleep. But you see from the Yetzer Hara, you can figure out, like Rabbi Chanina ben Chachinoi says, not that the Tana needs my approbation, but the Laila is mesugel for limud HaTorah. Continues the Chavetz Chaim, right by the Oiskot and Yud Zayin for the Sharat Tzion, says the Mishnah Berurah, somebody who's not able to get up so early in the morning, before Netzach Hama, machmas, or even before Alois, machmas shehu chalush b'tivai, he's weak. Or maybe he knows that if he'll get up early, yishan be'esat tefillah, he'll fall asleep during davening. Mutav lisha kol hatzorech, it would be better he should sleep all the time that he needs. However, yezahir ma'oid lakum shah ulapachas chatzi shah, he should make sure to get up either an hour or at least a half an hour. Kaidem kriyas hashamish lebeis hakneses, before the shamish comes knocking on the door that it's time to come to shul. Kedei sheyal yuchad lahachin atzmai, so that he should have adequate time to prepare himself lehispalel b'tzibur, for davening b'tzibur u'b'nikius, and to daven with a guf naki. So this means he has to make sure to get up with enough time to make the physical preparations that he needs to make. He should be able to come to shul via mensch. He should be able to take out his talis and tefillin, put on his talis and tefillin with plenty of time, not between brachas and karbanis and psukei de zimra. No, he should be able to put on his talis and tefillin, go daven like a mensch, say psukei de zimra like a mensch. We have to realize, all too often, people look at chakras like something that has to get done. I have to get it done. Knock it off. Checklist. I got to go daven chakras because I can't do anything else before I daven chakras. So I got to daven chakras. Then I could start my day. No. What are you talking about? Chakras is a critical part of your day. That's what chakras is. Chakras is what your day is. Especially somebody who's got daven chakras and they're going to work. So the work is secondary. Torah, tefillah, that's primary. So the chakras is a primary part of your day. If it's a primary part of your day, how do you treat it? You treat it by walking into shul 5 minutes late, throwing on your talis and tefillin? No. You should come in early, put on your talis and tefillin like a mensch, say the yiratzins beforehand, realize, have time to think why you're putting on tefillin, what the point of the tefillin is, right? Sheyichaven, person should have kavana, l'shaboy bazeh tavei sabachshavais libeinu la'avedasai. We're tying on a shalyad keneged alev to be meshabed our lave to the Rabbeinu Shalom. We're putting on a shel roish to be meshabed the hirhurim that we have in our head to the Rabbeinu Shalom. We shouldn't have any hirhurim roim. We should be able to be careful during the day not to look at things that we're not supposed to look at, not to have any kind of hirhurim roim, right? These are things that we're supposed to have in mind when we go to daven, when we go put on a talis and tefillin and go to daven. So come in on time, come in like a mensch, be able to do it like a mensch. Mishnah Berurah is cutting yud. Shehei meitzer, a person should be aggravated, he should be upset over the korban bias. Aval, however, says the Chavetz Chaim, HaTorah v'hatfilah, when you go to sit down by the Daf Yomi shir, or the Dirshu shir, or with your morning Seder Chavrusa, Va'atfila, when you go to daven a beautiful psukkah de zimra, yeah, besimcha. That should be besimcha. Chavetz Chaim is telling you, don't think that a person is supposed to be walking around Tisha B'Av all day long. You can't learn Torah well that way. You can't be bespal well that way. The Mokim Rina, Sham Yeh Tefillah, a person is supposed to sing davening. Psukkah de Zimra, it's psukim of song. So davening, learning, that has to be done with tremendous simcha. Times other than that, a person has to have the Churban Bayis on his mind. Yod Aleph, Churban Bais HaMikdash, Kasav Shla, the Shla writes, Shebechol Suda, every time somebody washes for a Suda and he has to bench, Yomar al Na'arois Bavel. He should say, Kapitel Kuf Lamed Zayin in Tehillim, that speaks about the Churban Bayis and the Golus, to bring into his mind, especially by a Suda, which is sometimes joyous, he should have in mind the Churban. Ube Shabbos, on Shabbos, v'chen b'yamim shein omer behem tachdun. So Shabbos, Yamim Tovim, other days when we don't say tachdun because it's ashtik ala simcha, it's not appropriate then to say al naris pavel. Yomer shiramalis b'shav Hashem. Then you should say kapitel kuf chavav, which is shiramalis. Shiramalis does not focus on the negative of the Churban, like al naris pavel does. Shiramalis focuses on the joy of the Geula. But by speaking about the joy of the Geula, that reminds us that Nebuch, we're awaiting the Geula. That's appropriate for Shabbos, Yom Tov, days that we don't say Tachdun. It's also appropriate for a Sudas Mitzvah. You make a Gesiyim, you buy a Chasana, you buy a Sheva Brachas. When we're making a Sudas Mitzvah, we also sing Shir Amalos. We don't say Al Naris Bava. The Iker, of course, the Iker is, says the Chavetz Chaim, Sheyeda Ma'Ka'amar, somebody should not just, okay, time for Shir Amalos. So Shir Amalos means it's time for benching. No, you should have in mind, Achar Kavanas Alev Hein Hadvarim. What matters is the Kavanas Alev, what you have in your heart. So when we sing Shir Amalos, we have to know what we're singing about, and it has to lead us to remember the Churban. Oftentimes, it comes to me, especially when I'm saying a share during the 3 weeks or during the 9 days, oftentimes people have come to me and they've said that they have trouble mourning over the Churban because they don't know what they're mourning for. They never saw a Bais HaMikdash. How are they supposed to mourn for the Bais HaMikdash? Because they learned Parshas Truma, Parshas Tetzaveh, and they learned about the building of the Mishkan and the Big Day Kahuna. They don't know what a Bais HaMikdash is. How are they supposed to mourn for it? Especially somebody who never learned the sugyas of Kachim. The avodah of the Karbonis is totally foreign to him. So what's he going to mourn for? The answer, my friends, is a very simple answer. And that is whatever tzara you have in your life, you could peg it to the Churban Bayis. And I really mean that. When we had a Bais HaMikdash and we had a shulchan, the shulchan that had the lechem upon him gave a hashpah of parnasa out to the world. When we had a menorah in the Heichal, that gave a hashpah of Torah, the Or HaTorah, Ner Mitzvah v'Torah Or. When we had a menorah in the Bais HaMikdash, a Shivera Taisvis was easier to learn. A Shivera Sugya was easier to comprehend. When we had a Shulchan, it was easier to make a living. And it goes without saying, the Chazal tell us that nobody ever went to sleep in Yerushalayim while he was upset. Why? Because he came to Yerushalayim, he brought his karbonos, and he knew that he got kippur avonos. Imagine, Rabbi say, imagine somebody does a chet, he wants to do tshuva. He goes to the Bais HaMikdash, he brings the appropriate carbon, and he has hirurei tshuva in his mind. He's misvada, he says vidoy over his carbon, he brings a carbon, he goes home with a clean slate. He knows, I did what I had to do, I got kippur avonos. So, the tsaris that we have, people never have family members going through a difficult divorce, or a difficult din Torah in business, maybe between partners or family members. If there was a Bezdin of 23 in the city, we wouldn't have these problems. You go to the Bezdin settles the issue. And there's no such thing as not listening. And there's no such thing as crooked tayanim coming in and making crooked arguments either. So you have a Bezdin of 23 in a city. Imagine how much less tsaris you have. So there's so many tsaris that we have. Just look in your life. Whatever tsaris you have, they could be pegged to the Churban. So everybody has what to mourn for the Churban. And like the Mechaber says, Roy l'chol yirei shamayim, she'meitzer v'doyeg al Churban Bais HaMikdash. There has to be an urgency that we have to know. We have to do tshuva, ma'asim tovim. We need to be able to go beg the Rabbeinu Shalom for the Geula Shleima. We have to be zeichet to that Bias Goel Tzedek b'mehera v'yameinu. Says the Mechaber weiter. Sif Daud. A very, very important concept in Avodas Hashem. Says the Mechaber. Toiv ma'at tachanunim. He brings this down from the Torah. Toiv ma'at tachanunim b'kavana. It's better to say less tachanunim. We're speaking about things like Tikun Chatzos, piyutim, slichus. It's better to say less tachanunim b'kavana, but with understanding and intent, meharbois, than saying a lot of tefillas, b'loi kavana, without any kavana, without understanding and intent. Says the Mishnah Berurah cut your base, b'loi kavana, avalim hamar b'kivin gamkein, but if you could say a lot of tefillas with kavana, hamar b'tov yoser, so certainly being marba is even better. Let's say you have somebody who could only say a little bit, and it's due to an oinus. He can't say more. He doesn't have the time for whatever reason. Or maybe he takes the measure of himself and he sees that if he is marich itachanunim, lo yeh he's going to burn out. He's not going to be able to pay attention to what he's saying anymore. Some people have this problem. Let's say on Tisha B'Av. They're saying kinnis, maybe he's a hard faster, they're tired, they just get worn out after an hour, and they know that after that hour, they're just going to be rambling. They're not going to be saying more. So they say less, but they prepare it first, they understand it, they say it with kavana, they say it with hearts. Nechshav l'ftei Hashem yisparach, that is valued by the Rabbeinu Shalom, k'may oisai sheyesh lo pnai, just as much as the other fellow who has time, umarich b'tachanunim b'kavana, and he's marich with his tachanunim with kavana. V'al zeh shaninu, and it is in reference to this that we learn in the Gemara in Menachos, echad hamarbe ve'echad hamamit, both the one who does more and the one who does less, they're both valued, u'balvachi yechavin liba l'shamayim, as long as they are mechavin libam l'shamayim, as long as they have the proper kavanas and intents in their hearts. V'chein, and this is very important, v'chein le'ilyin talmud Torah inyin kein. The same concept applies to limud HaTorah. Ki hakol talui l'ftei Hashem yisparach im oisek kol Hashem ekoychai lasos. It all depends on if you do everything that you can do. As long as you do everything you can do, then you are mamali yotafkid. Beautiful, beautiful mimer from the Rishiva Zatzal, from Rav Moshe Zekatzat v'Kadosh L'Vracha. Rav Moshe used to say, you have to understand, you have to have a proper understanding of anavah. We praise Moshe Rabbeinu, we say Moshe Rabbeinu was anav mikol adam. Yet, we know, just had it recently in Parshas Kisisa, that when Moshe Rabbeinu got up to go to the oil, when his oil was bichutz lamachane, everybody came to the door of their oil, of their tent, and they watched Moshe Rabbeinu go, and then they watched Moshe Rabbeinu come back, and they stood up, and they saw kikaran arpanav, they saw that Moshe Rabbeinu's face shone. I saw that by Rav Moshe. I saw it with my own eyes. Rav Moshe Zekatzat v'Kadosh L'Vracha, his face shone. Maybe I'll tell you the story another time, but I saw it, his face shone. And when the Rishiva Zatzal David with us at Staten Island, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, when he had to leave to go out of the Bismedrish, davening had to stop because everybody got up and went to the aisle to watch him. And then when he came back, they went to the aisle and they watched him until he went to his seat. And yet, Rav Moshe was a tremendous anav. How do you manage to be an anav when the whole world is running to see you, when everybody's standing up for you? How are you an anav? The Rishonim Zatzal said, I'll tell you how. It's very easy. You have to have the proper perspective. He said, I look in the back of the Mishnah Berurah and I see a Yid who's a Tehillim Zager. He sits in the back of the Mishnah Berurah and he says Tehillim. Maybe he learns a little bit Mishnayos. I don't know what koiches the Ribbono Shel Olam gave him. Maybe that's exactly the koiches that the Ribbono Shel Olam gave him. So when he learns a par Mishnayos and he says a par kapitlach Tehillim, he's being memala his tafkid 100%. He says, maybe the Ribbono Shel Olam gave me the koiches to write one more tshuva, or to write one more shir, or to say one more shmuz, or be mechadish one more chiddush. And I didn't do it. In that case, I wasn't memala my tafkid, but he was. So who's bigger? He is bigger, not me. Now, should the world stand up for him? No. The world has to stand up for me, because even if I wasn't memala my tafkid, I'm the one that they have to come ask shilas to. They can't ask the shilas to him, even though he was memala his tafkid, but his tafkid wasn't to be a paisik. So they can't ask him the shilas, they have to ask me the shilas. Memela, they have to be mechabin me. But that doesn't mean that I'm bigger than him. And he said, that's pshat in the Gemara that says that when they went up to Shamayim, they saw olam hafach re'isi. They saw an upside down world. Hel yoinim lamata v'tachtoinim lamata. He says, because it could be, on this world, I'm an elyon. But maybe in the next world, I'm a tachton. Maybe in the next world, there are people that are a lot bigger than me, who on this world are looked upon as small people. Because they were memala their tafkid, while I was not memala mine. And that's the concept that the Mishnah Berurah is telling you over here. The Mishnah Berurah is telling you over here that Hakol Toloi Lifnei Hashem Yisparach Im Oisek Kol Asher B'Koichai Lasos. The key to the Ribbono Shel Olam is, did you do everything that you can? Don't look at the people who learn Daf Yomi. If that's not what you're capable of doing, if that's not where you're holding, so then if it takes you a week to learn a plot, not because you're being mavatal, not because you're wasting time, but it takes you a week to learn a plot. If it takes you a week to learn a plot, then your plot is just as precious to the Ribbono Shel Olam as Yena's 7 plot. There's no question. If you're at the level where you're ready to learn Chumash Rashi, then Chumash Rashi is where it's at, not Daf Yomi. Le'idach kisa, if you have the koyach to learn Gemara Rashi Tosfos, and you're stopping at Gemara Rashi, or maybe just Gemara without Rashi, If the Ribbono Shel Olam gave you the koyach to learn Gemara Rashi Tosfos, you got to learn Gemara Rashi Tosfos. If he gave you the koyach to learn Shas another time, to go faster, to accomplish more, you got to accomplish more. Continues the Mishnah Berurah. Umishu Baal Torah v'yesh lo lev lahavid v'lilmoid. Somebody who's a real Baal Torah and he has the mind where he could understand and learn. He doesn't have to say all of these piyutim and tefillas that are printed in the siddur for Tikun Chatzos, etc. It would be better he should learn Torah instead of the tefillos and tachanunim. It's critical for a person to set a time to learn Musar, Mesos Yesharim, Chayvus Alavavos, Pirkei Avos at Rabbeinu Yoina. Person has to make a time to learn Sifrei Musar, Im Ma'ak v'im Harbe. Because somebody who's bigger than his chaver, God Yitzray Gadol Imenu. His Yetzahara is bigger. What's the antidote? What's the vaccination to the Yetzahara? You want to know how to get vaccinated, right? To the Yetzahara? That is Torah. Barasi Yetzahara, the Ribbono Shel Olam says, I created a Yetzahara, Barasi Torah Tavlin law. But I created a Torah, which is the antidote to the Yetzahara. And over here specifically, the Chavetz Chaim says, Sifrei Musar. Okay. Sifhei. Says the Mechaber, Toiv loymar parshas ha'akeda. It is good to say the parsha of the Akeda, or parshas Hamon, and the parsha of the Mon for parshas Peshalach, va'aseres hadibrois, and to say the psukim of the aseres hadibrois, or parshas Ola u'mincha u'shlamim v'chatas va'osham, and the psukim that speak about the carbon Ola, the carbon mincha, the carbon shlamim, the carbon chatas, and the ashamos. It's good to say those every day, says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Kat Yud Gimel. Parshas HaAkeda, Kainem Parshas HaKarbanos. We should say the parsha of the Akeda before we recite Karbanos, and indeed that is where it is printed in the Siddur. And the reason for this is Al Pi Kabbalah. When we bring Karbanos, it reminds the Rabbeinu Shalom of the Akeda as well. V'yachal parshas ha'akedu parshas Hamon afilu b'Shabbos. The Mishnah Berurah tells us that we could say the parsha of the Akeda and the parsha of the Mon even on Shabbos. And there is a chiddush over there. There are those that say that we should not say the parsha of the Akeda on Shabbos. Why? Because when we say the parsha of the Akeda, what do we say in the Siddur? In the tefillah of the Rabbeinu Shalom, that we say, let's see, this Siddur, Rabbeinu Shalom, K'maisha kavash Avram Avinu es rachamov lasais ritzoyncha b'levav shalem. The same way Avram Avinu was kavish, he conquered his innate midah of rachmanus when he went ahead and he prepared himself to bring his son as a carbon by the Akeda. Kein yichbishu rachamecha es kascha me'aleinu. So too, your midah of rachamim, Rabbeinu Shalom, should conquer your anger at us. V'yagoylu rachamecha al midoisecha. Your rachamim should overtake any other midah. Specifically, which midah? The midah sadin. But the midah sadin, we're taught, is not noyig on Shabbos and Yom Tov. So on Shabbos and Yom Tov, why should we say the Parshas Akeda? We don't have to ask the Rabbeinu Shalom that the midas rachamim should conquer the midas sadin. There is no midas sadin. That's one reason brought down why perhaps we shouldn't say the Parshas Akeda, but the Mishnah Berurah says we could say Parshas Akeda. Maybe the tefillah of Rabbeinu Shalom we don't say, but the Parshas Akeda you could say. The Parshas Hamon, we say the Parshas Hamon to arouse in the Rabbeinu Shalom the willingness to grant us our parnasa, but we're not mispal for parnasa on Shabbos because we don't make bakashas on Shabbos. Shabbos he melizoik. We're not zoyik. We don't cry out to make bakashas on Shabbos. So perhaps we shouldn't say Parshas Hamon. Mishnah Berurah says we can. Ve'ein dai ba'amira. Certainly, the Mishnah Berurah says amira, just recital, is not enough. Elishi is in mashu omer. Person has to think and understand what he's saying. The yakir neflois Hashem. He has to recognize the wonders of the Rabbeinu Shalom and bringing them on. Where Chazal tell us that if you say Ashrei 3 times a day, you're sure to be a Ben Olam Haba. That's not if you mumble Ashrei 3 times a day. That if you say Ashrei with Kavana, what's the reasoning why we should say all of these parshas? The parsha of the Akeda we want to remind, so to speak. We want to mention the schus avos every day. The gam kidei lachnia yitzrai, and also to humble our yetzer hara. K'moshe masa Yitzchak nafshay. Yitzchak was ready to be ma'aseh nefesh by the Akeda. So we have to be machnia ourselves, humble ourselves before the Rabbeinu Shalom. Uparshas Hamon kidei sheyamin, so that we should believe shekol mazaynosav bayin b'hashgacha pratis, that our parnasa is brought to us by Hashgacha Pratis, not anything else. Like it says in the parsha of the Mon, Hamarbe loy hedif, somebody who made more hishtadlus to collect more mon, he didn't end up having any more. V'hamamit, and the one who made less hishtadlus, he collected less mon, loy hechsir. In the end, they both measured how much mon they collected, and they both collected an omer. They both got the same omer. Maybe we'll speak about that a little bit more tomorrow. Lahayros, this was to teach she'ein ribay ha'ishtadlus ma'al me'uma, that increased hishtadlus does not get you anything. It's only the Rabbeinu Shalom gives parnasa. Somebody who says Parshas Haman with Kavana has a haftacha that he will have mezainis without a problem. V'aseres hadibris, what's the reasoning to say aseres hadibris? Kedei sheyizkar b'chol yom ma'amid har Sinai. We should remember ma'amid har Sinai, Kabbalah HaTorah every day. V'yischazik emunasei b'Hashem, and we should be b'schazik be'emunah. Parshas HaKarbanos, and why do we say the Karbanos? Darmina b'menachas, we quote the pasuk Zois Toiras HaChatos. In the pasuk in Vayikra, it says Zois Toiras HaChatos. This is the Torah of the Chatos, and we learn out from there. Kala oisik b'Toiras Chatos. If you're oisik in the Torah, in the psukim of the Karban Chatos, kilu hikrav Chatos, that will stand instead as if you brought a Karban Chatos. We're going to stop over here. We'll just finish up the last 3 Mishnah lines of Mishnah Berurah tomorrow, and maybe we have a short page tomorrow. We'll take the opportunity to speak a little bit more tomorrow about the Mon, the Parshas of the Karbanos, and some of the other highlights from today's very lengthy page of Mishnah Berurah. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Ran should send Yeshua's refuas, parnasit, shedukim to all those in need, and we should be zeicha finally to see the Bias Tzedek, b'mehera v'yameinu, amen. Be well.